presentation of Fox Sports.
We are the Force. We are NC.
After the first two games, which celebrated the Royals' remarkable run last year, it's back to the task at hand, focusing on baseball and the 2016 schedule. The next 10 days start the real season, 10 straight days of games within the division against playoff teams and old rivals. The Royals open that stretch tonight against a team that is hungry in the AL Central, the Minnesota Twins. Baseball is once again the focus, and now it's time to look forward and defending the crown. Royals baseball from Kauffman Stadium, and we are back to the so-called grind as the Royals begin a three-game series with Minnesota tonight. And Royals baseball is presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the ballpark with Rex Hudler. I'm Ryan Lefevre, and as much fun as it was here at Kauffman Stadium on Sunday night and Tuesday afternoon, and you can speak to this, a former 10-year major leaguer. Players just love to get back into the routine, the regular routine of the season.
That's right. The round ball and the round bat is the reason you have to play baseball every single day. And to get rid of the pomp and circumstance, that's important for the fans especially and the players. But now 10 games in 10 days, that's a beautiful thing for these guys to start getting on track, especially playing in their own division here to start. And also Houston, Oakland, it's all baseball, and that brings smiles to their faces.
And all 10 of those games will be right here on Fox Sports Kansas City. The Royals will face an old friend tonight, Irvin Santana, who spent a year with the Royals, and Yordano Ventura makes his season debut tonight, and the Royals are expecting big things from him.
Yes, especially if he's made those mental adjustments that Ned and Dave Island have been working with him on to harness that great emotion and that great enthusiasm into his pitches. It should make for a great year for him.
Joel and Monty will talk about him when we come back.
Opening week at Kauffman Stadium, and after 2 rare days off, the Royals return to action against the Twins. First of 19 between these division rivals. Joel Goldberg, Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery, and in just a little bit, we'll see the 2016 debut of Yordano Ventura. He was last year's opening day starter. It didn't go great. There were a lot of hiccups early in the season. Look back to last year and now compare it to maybe what we might see this year.
Well, I think a lot of things with when you're the opening day starter, a lot of pressure on you, and he went out, had a nice game on opening day. Then he got his maybe off track a little bit, and I think once he was able to harness that energy, use it to help him be that energetic, that fiery guy on the mound, we saw a huge difference in Yordano Ventura.
And then he got demoted to the minor leagues, never really ended up going because Jason Vargas got hurt that night, but it was a demotion. He comes back, he's phenomenal to close out the season. What did he do different?
Well, it's a little bit of a wake-up call for him, but I think harnessing that energy, and Dave Eiland talked today about the fact that he was able to really stay on top of his game mentally. He said when he's on top of his game mentally, the physical stuff happens. He repeats his delivery, his release point's consistent, and then the results follow.
Battling that fine line early in the season, he has to pitch with energy, he has to have emotion, but he was backing off after a lot of those skirmishes and brawls, and then found himself in the second half of the year. So he is set to take on the Minnesota Twins. They were a surprise second-place team last year. Ryan and Hud talk more about Minnesota when we come back on Fox Sports Kansas City.
Season debut tonight against the Minnesota Twins. Speaking of the Minnesota Twins, Hud, similar to the Royals a few years ago, they are coming off a winning season. Nobody's expecting much, and I say nobody, baseball experts, and they're off to an 0-3 start.
Well, they got a young outfield, that's for sure, inexperienced, all under the age of 25 years old. They've gotten off to a tough start, you're right, but not just not getting the big hits with runners in scoring position. They had holes in their bats up there. 35 punch-outs in 27 innings their hitters had. Not good. And it's not good for tonight because Irvin, if he's on top of his game, he'll punch out at least 8 to 10 of them.
And we'll talk starting pitching when we come back. Yordano Ventura and Ervin Santana at Kauffman Stadium. down I-35 tonight, tomorrow night, and Sunday afternoon. Urban Santana, he had an abbreviated season last year. He was suspended for violating the league's performance-enhancing drug policy. Only made 17 starts. And Yordano Ventura taking the mound for the Royals.
Yep, looks like it's going to be a nice matchup. They're counting on Ventura. The Royals are, to get them over 500.
Royals and Twins. Starting lineups, first pitch. They're coming up next. Baseball is brought to you by the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket you play gives back to schools across Missouri, so play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. By Menards, save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by your Midwest Ford dealers. Visit yourmidwestforddealers.com. Well, from your living room, it looks like a nice night in Kansas City. It is a bright blue sky, but it is windy, and that wind is coming out of the north. So it is cool now. It will be cold by the time the game's over. There's Paul Molitor in his second season as Twins manager, the Hall of Fame player, now a new career as a skipper. And last year, his team surprised many as they finished 83-79 after 4 consecutive years of 90 or more losses. And they're facing right-hander Yordano Ventura, who was a big strikeout pitcher last year against Minnesota. 19 strikeouts in 12 1/3 innings.
Well, the stuff, Ryan, has always been there. Ned Yost says that this kid, when he came on the scene a couple of years ago, he's got a chance to do some great things. However, he's a very intense young man. He loves to compete, and sometimes that delicate mental muscle can overtake you, and we witnessed that the last couple of years. They're hoping he can harness himself emotionally and get those pitches down in that strike zone consistently.
And he throws a strike to Brian Dozier. Dozier is without a hit. He is 0 for 11. Almost got him on the shoulder. 1 ball, 1 strike.
You show that pitch inside in the mid to upper 90s. That'll back that hitter off, and really it'll remain in the back of his mind.
And there's his first hit of the season. Kane cuts it off. Dozier takes an aggressive turn, but he holds with a single. And a look at the Royals defensively, presented by Ford, and Ned Yost has gone with the same lineup 3 games in a row now, with Gordon, Kane, and Fuentes in the outfield. Moustakas, Escobar, Infante, and Hosmer around the horn, and Salvador Perez is behind the plate. So Ray Fuentes, who didn't appear to be a big part of the Royals picture when spring training began, is now starting his 3rd straight game. This is Danny Santana at the plate, and Ventura is in with a strike.
Tell you what, that swing by Dozier to get his first hit of the year was a beauty. That was a little 2-seam fastball down in the zone, and he kept a short swing on it and guided it right back up the middle. Now Santana, he likes to bunt the ball. We've watched this young man move runners the last couple of years, but I think Molitor, having his Hall of Fame experience, realizes it's tough to bunt a guy with Ventura's type of stuff. So he's letting him swing away, see if he can make something happen. Irvin with the 3 nice pitches. He will occasionally, it looks like a cut fastball, but mainly fastball, curveball, changeup.
That will drop. A long run for Gordon and Moustakas. Still 0-2. This was, and you can take this for what it's worth, this was the hottest hitter for the Twins in spring training, Danny Santana. He is just 2 for 4 in the regular season games. Minnesota was swept in Baltimore to begin the regular season.
This kid, he's got good batting ability from both sides of the plate. He's short to the ball. He likes to bunt, like I said. But that curveball there is a little bit too much. That is Ventura's strikeout pitch.
But if they're swinging at that pitch tonight, Ventura's gonna have a good night. That thing, look at how far this thing lands in front of home plate. That was a foot before home plate.
Right, and that tells me lots of times the hitter's guessing there, especially with 2 strikes. He's thinking heater all the way because he was totally fooled. Good overhand bite on that secondary pitch.
Joe Mauer with 1 on 1 out. He is 4 out of 11 with a home run. He has excellent numbers against the Royals in his career, and he has even better numbers against the Royals here at Kauffman Stadium.
Stays inside of the ball very well as a hitter. When you're doing that, that means you're utilizing the opposite field in center field by keeping your hands in, and he does that with the best of them. One of the reasons why he's a career 300 hitter or better. I'd like to see him pull the ball if he can handle one on the middle and inner part of the plate.
1 ball and 1 strike. There they are, 80 games, so the equivalent of half a regular season, and Joe Mauer has hit .341 in this ballpark. Salvador Perez can only give it a look, and Ventura's ahead 1-2.
Dozier has base stealing ability. I don't think Molitor wants to test the Gold Glover Salvador Perez early.
And Ventura's quick to the plate.
That's right. Very quick home, and usually a good tempo throughout the game, Ventura.
Just outside with a breaking ball, 2-2.
Obviously, the Royals and all the time they played against Mauer, they know, look where Lorenzo Cain is out there in center field. He is way over on the left field side. They're not expecting him to pull Ventura at all. If he does, he could score. Dozier, nice pitch. Oh man, looked like home plate umpire Vic Carapazza had a little flinch as he thought that might have been a strike, and to me it looked like it caught some of the dish.
Now we'll see if Dozier runs with a count 3-2. He does, and Mauer fouls it back 95 miles an hour. Hard to believe, but Joe Mauer hit .265 last year.
Ooh,
lowest batting average of his career.
Yeah, that's not Joe.
Dozier runs again, and it's fouled back again. The first adjustment that the Twins made with Mauer, he had been on the disabled list because of concussions, taking the foul balls, foul tips off of his mask and his helmet. So they moved him to first base, and then Mauer finally admitted this past off season that he had been dealing with some blurred vision, especially during the day game. So he's been hitting with sunglasses during the spring training games, just admitting that he's not seeing the ball like he used to. Dozier's getting quite a workout. He'll go in standing as Mauer walks, and Minnesota has 2 on with 1 out. And now they'll chat before pitching to big Miguel Sano.
One of the issues for Ventura can be at times you get a little bit wild out of the strike zone. This early right now, he's maybe trying to be a little too fine against Mauer. In his 5 career starts against the Twins, he has 21 walks in 30 innings pitched. That's a high number.
Sano is 2 out of 10 with a couple of singles, and that missed badly. 1 ball and no strikes. Big talk in regard to the Twins, Hut, was not Sano's bat. He was going to play every day this year, but where he was going to play on defense. They're taking a big third baseman and moving him to right field. Great changeup, 1-1.
No, and that'll be a huge learning curve for Sano in right field. Especially never playing the outfield before. But this guy can hit. When you can hit and break like he can, they're going to find a spot for you, and that's what they're trying to do. They didn't move Trevor Plouffe, the third baseman, to make room for Sano, so they moved him to right.
Breaking ball in for a strike, and it's 1-2.
Beauty. Now, I would say that Ventura's more of a fly ball pitcher than a ground ball pitcher. But however, he has induced last year 11 ground ball double plays in his 28 starts. So he can roll a lane ball here and there.
He went. And again, it was a breaking ball, and a breaking ball that wasn't close. Sano doesn't agree. Paul Molitor in the Twins dugout, they're chewing on Vic Carapazza. They thought that he held up.
Well, it's all about the umpire's interpretation, whether he made an attempt to swing or not. And I would say by looking at that, he made an attempt. I used to think that it was the bat head had to cross home plate. For all them years as a player, that's what I always thought. But then it wasn't until I became a broadcaster and spent time in the locker room with the umpires that I learned that it's an interpretation.
Good change up to Trevor Plouffe. Yeah, because sometimes a hitter starts his swing and then he's just trying to get out of the way and the ball crosses that front plane, but he wasn't trying to make contact with the baseball. But as long as the hitter is attempting a swing and he crosses that plane, strike. And now 0-2, Ventura against Trevor Plouffe. So this is where Minnesota really struggled, being swept by Baltimore in their first 3 games, hitting with runners in scoring position. A statistic where they really thrived last year. And with runners at first and second and 1 down, Ventura strikes out Sano. And did he go around? No. DJ Rayburn is the first base umpire. 1-2 on Plouffe.
Ooh, that was close.
Good good equalizer there. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Just watching that free and easy life coming out of his hand, that ball really explodes. He's got a nice smooth delivery. Dave Eiland wants him to concentrate on keeping his upper body going north and south and not east and west. Opening those shoulders causes trouble. When you open the shoulders, you fly open, you leave the ball out over the middle of the plate, it's more hittable. So he wants to see that shoulder and that upper body going straight down, north and south.
You and I did a spring training broadcast together. Ventura was pitching to the Dodgers that night and had that trouble you were talking about, and they knocked him all around Surprise Stadium.
Yeah, that was mainly minor league players, but you know, they may be minor leaguers at the start of the season, but they all hit that fastball.
Changeup makes it 3 balls, 2 strikes, so the runners will be going again.
Plouffe 1 for 5 in his career off of Ventura. This early in the game, you'd expect to be challenged if you're the hitter, Plouffe. We'll see what Salvi calls.
Still 3-2. And was challenged.
Yeah, and when you use that word challenge, that usually means I'm going to challenge you with my best pitch, the fastball. There it is. You see the 2 seams, or that was a 4-seamer. He had the seams in his right on top of his hands there.
Change up, pulled on the ground to Escobar, and throws out Plouffe. So Minnesota's troubles continue with runners in scoring position. They get 2 runners against Ventura, but are scoreless. Here comes Alcides Escobar up against Ervin Santana. 33-year-old Ervin Santana, and to say last year was a roller coaster ride for him would not be an exaggeration at all. First missing the first 80 games because of suspension, then he was very good. His first start was against the Royals. Very good for 4, very bad for 6, and then finished strong in his last 8. Escobar showing bunt against the first pitch of the game, and he takes a strike. Esky is 2 out of 8 to begin the season.
You hear the term peaks and valleys. Ervin lived it last year.
A little half swing, and Dozier makes the play. Anything in the air has a chance of being an adventure with that wind blowing from left to right.
So what the Royals will be seeing out of Ervin Santana's hands as you see that wind gushing out to right field is he's got a good 4- and 2-seam fastball. That means the 4-seamer stays straight. 2-seamer has a little bit of sink and run into the righty and away from the lefty. He's got a nice little slider that he uses and occasional changeups. But he mainly stays away. Doesn't come inside unless it's for effect. He'll come away in. He didn't like to leave any mistakes out over, and most pitchers don't.
Dozier to the hole, off the heel of his glove, and then he throws it away. He had time to get Moustakas. So an error on Dozier. He rushed the throw.
Yep, just pulled his shoulder like we talk about with pitchers. When the shoulder comes open, you're going to leave that front side wide open. You're going to miss your target. See how that shoulder came? That left shoulder. And then good stop. Kind of a little bit of a panic. He had more time. You got to know the runner's speed, and I'm sure Dozier does. He played against the Royals the last couple of seasons, but you don't want to panic after you make the initial clank. Ervin's fastball, his 2-seamer 90 to 92, 4-seamer he could get to 95.
Inside to Kane. 2 hits and 2 runs scored for Kane against the Mets, and he got his first stolen base. Good career numbers against the Twins, and he had a very good year against them last year. There's the slider for a strike.
Right-handed hitters, as long as Ervin Santana's in the game tonight, are going to see a lot of that same pitch right there. Sliders on the outer half of the plate. And believe me, just because a hitter knows what the pitcher has doesn't really make it any easier.
2-1. I remember when Santana pitched for the Angels, and when the Royals would face him, usually the response after the game was, that's the best slider we've seen all year. Very close to getting Kane on the elbow, and now it's 3-1.
That's his purpose pitch. And if you have a good slider like you talked about, he's going to use that pitch there to get the hitter off of the outside part of the plate. At least he'll try to do that. But that's a purpose pitch.
Three and two.
And so in order to square a ball up like that, a slider on the outer half, if you pull it and you try to pull it to left field, you're going to have a trouble with that pitch, because you're going to either pop it up or you're going to hit a little ground ball. So you want to try to think opposite field and react in. 3-2, you're expecting a fastball.
And it's a slider.
Good pitch. Nice location. So you're looking dead red. That's another baseball term for a fastball.
Whoa.
And it looked like a ball there, and I wasn't sure about it in the first place.
And when he threw the pitch, I thought it was going to be much closer than that.
Give Suzuki a little credit back there, the receiver, the catcher.
Down and away to Hosmer.
And that's what he'll do with that third pitch, his changeup. He'll try to fade that away, just like that, away from left-handers, so they top it. And the whole idea, obviously, is to try to keep the ball out of the middle, because big league hitters don't usually miss those. That little two-seamer has some sink to it, a little bit of sink at the very end.
Nicked it foul, 1-2. Santana has pitched. He pitched opening day at Baltimore. He only went 2 innings, and not because he got knocked around by the Orioles. After a 1-hour 10-minute rain delay, he did not come back. Two balls and 2 strikes. Talking to people with the Twins are still kind of fuming over that game. There was rain in the forecast, so they sat around and basically waited for it to rain for an hour and 40 minutes, and it never really did. Maybe a light drizzle. Then they did begin to play, and it did rain, and after 2 innings they had another rain delay. Hit hard. Dozier was quite the target in this half inning for the Royals. He makes a play on Hosmer, and that ends the inning. So Dozier's error against Moustakas does not hurt the Twins. Of the second inning, as we look at our Kubota power stats. The Royals last year were 12-7 against Minnesota. They've now won 3 consecutive season series against the Twins. And if you've been following the Royals over the last 13-14 years, that might still give you a bit of a jolt, the way Minnesota used to dominate the season series. And now the tables have been turned. The Royals actually had a winning record against every team in the Central last year. This is Byung-ho Park out of the Korean baseball organization. Drives it to center field. Kane is back, still back, and at the track makes a play. I tell you what, Hud, with the wind and the way that ball was hit right at Kane, he made that play look easy. That is not an easy play.
Toughest play for a center fielder to make. Ball hit directly over your head and deep. And Park, his first at bat against the Royals, hit it to the wrong guy. Good concentration, moving back. Lorenzo Cain talking to him before the game about that spectacular catch he made on Tuesday. And I said, Lorenzo, there's no way off the bat I thought you were going to get to that. Your first 2 years as a Royal, you used to crash into those walls, and you got hurt a few times. What's different? He said, I've learned how to take shorter steps when I get towards the wall. He kind of shorts up. He said, the spin move is good. I can roll off of that. He tucks his shoulder. It's almost like when you hit the ground, you roll. You tuck your shoulder, and they call that an athletic roll. Same thing on the wall. He's turning sideways and not taking the brunt of that blow on his shoulder. So he's learning a lot about how to handle himself out there. And of course, watch him here. He looked down to see where he was. Now watch him as he knows he's going to make contact. He's going to turn that right shoulder, turn it to where he doesn't face it from the front side. He rolled right through it. Beautiful play.
Full count on Eduardo Escobar.
And of course, I mentioned the cut of the outfield warning track. They cut it about 7 feet deeper than the previous years because Lorenzo was having a hard time slowing down. He said the warning track has helped him as well.
Giving him a little earlier warning.
Right.
That he's closing in on the wall. Fouled away by Escobar. That may have been ball 4. Escobar's one of the rare or few Twins hitters that has gotten off to a good start. He is 5 for 12. And 4 of those hits are doubles. And now he's on with a 1-out walk. And Ventura has walked 2. Well, Royals fans, share in the World Series victory. Shop the official fan collection for fine jewelry and collectibles. Make sure to check out these exclusive items online at royals.com/fanrings. We got ours on Wednesday. The Royals had a luncheon for Royals employees and associates. And let me tell you, it is some kind of spectacular.
You better believe it. And I'll tell you how classy the organization was by giving out rings to longtime employees, people that are plumbers here in the ballpark, electricians for years. They included those guys in a tremendous sign and show of generosity with the Glass family.
0-1 on Kurt Suzuki. Into left field, and that's well hit. Alex Gordon is back. It is off the bottom of the wall. They're going to wave home Escobar. The Royals Escobar with a throw to the plate that's cut off, and the Royals will get an out. Suzuki is tagged out. Minnesota takes the lead 1-0 on Kurt Suzuki's double, and he is out 7-6-3-5.
He put a charge into this one. It was a curveball that Suzuki must have been looking for, but it's right over the heart of the plate, and a good short swing caught the back underside of the baseball, had some backspin on it, and Alex ran out of room and had to play it off the wall. Good to see him do that, because that ball was hit in the same exact spot where Alex got hurt last season when his body kind of contorted out there. It's good to see him just let that go. Good swing. 1 strike on Byron Buxton. And that ball's hit very well to left field. Alex into the corner, dives, and he got it. Buxton hit it into that strong wind blowing in from left out of the north, that strong cold wind, and allowed Alex Gordon to run it down. There he goes again. If it stays in the yard most of the time, the Platinum Glove winner, Alex Gordon, will catch it. Skills.
But a guy makes a great play to end one inning and bats second in the next inning.
At least once a game. Good concentration.
I thought that ball was gone.
I did
Hit
too.
it.
Off the bat, I thought, uh-oh, it's going to be 3-0.
But to quote the movie Major League, he hit it too high.
That's right.
And that wind out of the north knocked it down enough for Alex to catch up to it. 1-1 on Kendrys Morales. He was 1 out of 7 in the New York series, and now ahead in the count, 2 balls and 1 strike. The Royals had very few opportunities against Noah Syndergaard on Tuesday, but their biggest opportunity, with the bases loaded and 2 down, Syndergaard struck out Kendrys Morales, and now the wind helps out Buxton. It hurt him in the top of the second inning. Now it helps him out as that ball was knocked down, and that turned into almost a routine fly ball to center field.
Sure did. Sounded great. And then lots of times that's all players have to go off of, is the sound of that ball hitting that bat. Or the bat hitting the ball, however you want to look at it. Irvin wasn't sure either. Says, all right, staying in the yard. Former teammates against each other there. Morales and Irvin Santana with the Angels.
Alex was 1 for 7 against the Mets and also drove in his first run of the season. No balls and 2 strikes. Alex is our most trusted player, brought to you by the most trusted brand, Honda. He has done his best if you go by home runs and RBIs against Minnesota. 3 more of those and 7 driven in last year.
You know, it just seems like I've seen him hit tape measure shots at Target Field.
1-2.
I mean, he gets them up there in that right field section, and he bounced one out of the ballpark right there.
Two balls and 2 strikes.
Right there, left center field. That is quite a poke to hit it there. I can tell you, I would have to hit it twice to get it there, Ryan. That's a bomb, especially with any kind of wind at all. That's how huge the yard is here at the K.
Changeup. Santana strikes out his second.
He's using that changeup, slider, fastball combination, all 3 of those today. And the one that Hosmer hit, you see that, how that ball had some downward movement away. Actually, look at the split finger action there. You see that he had to use a split because that ball had a little bit more of a dip to it. And when you hold that ball between the fingers like that, that's what gets the sinking action. So he's mixing in a little split finger as well.
Slice the other way and out of play. 0-2 on Salvi. He was 1 out of 6 in the Mets series. One and 2. Two balls, 2 strikes. Santana tried to put him away with a slider down and out of the strike zone. Last year, with Minnesota having a winning record, if you go category by category, there really weren't any numbers that stand out and you go, okay, that's why Minnesota was so much better than many had predicted. But one of them was starting pitching. You know, 2 years ago, Twin starters had a collective 5 ERA. That's the whole staff.
Ouch.
And they got that down to just a shade over 4, almost cut it down by a whole point. And the plan was for Ervin Santana, they gave him a 4-year contract to anchor the starting rotation. But as we mentioned earlier, they only got him for half the season. Now they hope to have him for an entire season.
Well, he's an 11-year veteran in his 11th season now that has a great idea how to pitch. You can see he's using actually 4 pitches now. He's incorporating a split finger in there with his changeup, giving the changeup action a little different look.
Into center field. Man, was that an at-bat. Salvi was down 0-2. Got it to 3-2, and he's on with 2 down.
Yeah, great 2-strike approach. Split finger, staying with a split action, but that's right over the middle of the plate. Look at how, when you hear me say he's staying inside of the baseball, watch this. Hands go first, the bat head follows, and you use the large part of the field there in the middle. Look at that nice little curling action. He's loading up the hips, gets his head down on it. Great stroke.
Strike 2, Omar Infante.
What a great feeling that is off the bat as a hitter to get a knock right up the middle by the pitcher. And that ball's already in the outfield before you leave the batter's box.
That's a fair ball up the left field line. Santana plays it off the side wall and plays it well. Infante has a double. Seems harmless, but we've seen some goofy hops off of that side wall. But Santana kept the ball around him, so Perez holds it third.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of guys do circles down there, but Santana played it perfectly in the outfield. Off the end of the bat was Infante, but look, this is a healthy Omar Infante this year, looking for a bounce back here. Look at how Santana played that ball up the wall nicely out there. Really.
If you hook a ball in the corner like that, the ball's going to have some natural side spin to it, and it hits that concrete underneath the padding. And for most outfielders, it doesn't come off the way that they're expecting it. Ray Fuentes, good time for his first hit as a Royal. He will drive in 1. He will drive in 2. And as they did all year last year, the Royals answer immediately. And Ray Fuentes has his first Royals hit and his first 2 runs driven in.
Not wasting any time. Fastball, 2-seamer, stayed down the middle. And Ray let him know. Good, short, compact swing. Welcome to the championship Royals. He's going to be a nice addition. Infante, like I said, healthy. Not only his arm, but his legs feeling good. Scored with no problem from second base.
And all this started with 2 outs and nobody on. Now let's see if Fuentes runs. With Escobar at the plate, he does not, and Eske swings over a slider. Eske popped to second in the first inning.
Santana's a veteran pitcher we mentioned before. Very good with his hold times over there at first base when a runner on. He'll vary him. He'll hold long. Sometimes he'll go quick home. Keeps the runner guessing. He is quick home as far as his delivery. So that really hurts the chances to steal a base.
And we say that it's Fuentes' first hit as a Royal. He does have, or had, major league hits prior to tonight. He had 5 hits with the Padres. That was 3 seasons ago. A little bit inside. 1 ball, 1 strike. Morales flied to center. Gordon struck out. And then Salvador Perez was down 0-2. It looked like it was going to be an easy inning for Ervin Santana, but Salvi got the count full, and he started it with a single. 1-2 on Escobar.
Some more 2-out lightning.
It's cold. I don't know if it's that cold, but it's on the cool side, and we should be down into the mid to low 40s when we get to the final out tonight. And now Steve Kurtenbach, our director, says that there is a frost warning for tomorrow morning. So,
ooh, hopefully nobody planted their maters.
Yep.
Good time for an attempt to steal here. 2 strikes, 2 outs. If he gets thrown out, Escobar's leading off. Santana, he knows the same way. Suzuki's calling it over there. And with Suzuki last year not having his best catch and throw year, throwing runners out, only 9%. He threw out base runners. Irvin's giving him some big help here, keeping Raymond guessing over there at first base.
There he goes. And contact.
Wow.
Fuentes is out, and Suzuki did that after making contact with Escobar.
Oh, man, what a nice throw by Suzuki. But Ray Fuentes, first pitch. He wasn't wasting no time. A little sinking liner, scores not 1 but 2. Royals with a little dirt on you.
For the second inning, gets his first hit as a Royal and drives in 2 to give the Royals the lead. Yordano Ventura allowed a 1-out walk in the second inning to Eduardo Escobar, and then Kurt Suzuki's double scored Escobar as the Twins had a lead for a very short period of time. And now leadoff man Brian Dozier. And again, Ventura goes up and in on Dozier. Dozier singled to lead off the game, and that's his first hit of the year, making him 1 for 12. Changeup stayed high, 2-0. Two and one.
I guarantee you that the Minnesota Twins, when they left Baltimore, they wouldn't say it out loud, but they were saying, oh man, Orioles, we were supposed to at least win one of these games here, and now we're going playing the Royals. Look at that nice action right there. They knew what they're up against. A team that doesn't back down. They're defending their World Championship flag for the first time in 30 years. Oh man. What more could that be?
Well, I tell you, if Dozier hits that ball out of the ballpark, you say, oh, that was a mistake. He left it up. Boy. So back with a heater at 96. And that's Ventura's third strikeout. Here's our trivia question tonight, presented by Sprint. Who are the Royals' 3 winningest pitchers before the age of 25? Giordano is 24. 3 winningest pitchers before the age of 25. Is that winning percentage or total wins? Total wins.
Interesting.
Zach Greinke.
Okay.
Brett Saberhagen.
What about Steve Busby? Maybe? Or Gooby? Dennis Leonard?
A lot of good choices.
Apier? Is he that young?
I'm going to take back my Greinke because Zach really didn't get it going until around the Cy Young year. Hosmer. Tough play, good play. 2 down.
Whew, man. He has a knack of turning that baseball into a marshmallow. Look at that short hop pick. Just gets in great fielding position, bends his knees, and lets the glove do the talking.
So 2 down to Joe Mauer. He walked his first time up. That's not the only good play that Eric Hosmer has made tonight. The first one was more of just a heads up play and good defensive execution on his part back in the second inning after Suzuki hit the RBI double. One hop to Escobar. And that's the first time that a pitcher tonight has had a 1-2-3 inning. Hosmer played a role with the play on Santana. To the bottom of the third, the Royals lead 2-1. Palmer is positively impacting the lives of military members and their families in Kansas City. HC is a Vietnam War veteran. He founded Res Vets and volunteers with the Moral Injury Association, organizations offering outreach and support to area military veterans.
Ryan, he's a big friend of one of my neighbors that texted me and said, hey, check him out. He's going to be on Dr. Palmer. This guy, he has a passion for working with veterans and educating people about moral injury that afflicts combat veterans. Way to go, Dr. Palmer.
Back to Santana. And Escobar is 0 for 2. So we were talking about Eric Hosmer. We saw his great play on the ground ball by Santana. How about this play, Hud, just being in the right place at the right time?
You never see a first baseman. Once the relay man has it not too far off of the cut of the dirt, the first baseman's always wandering around first base. Maybe he's over there. You see where he is right here. Hosmer's going to end up in this spot right here, which is pretty special. Most of the time, the first baseman trails on that, but there's Hosmer out of nowhere. The run scored, but he picks up the out there. That's instinctive defensive play there.
That's Mike Moustakas' first hit of the year. And like last year, his first hit is an opposite field extra base hit. And the Royals have a runner at second with one out.
Two-seamer, middle away. Good, nice, level stroke. Watching Moose in batting practice today, in his first round, like most hitters do, he took the first 10 swings all left field, and he hit the first 5 foul left field. That's waiting as long as you could possibly wait. And then as you get more loose, then you start pulling the ball later in your other rounds. Usually you got 3-4 rounds of hitting. But he works at that all the time.
One and one on Kane. Just to finish the thought on the Hosmer play, if he's not where he was cutting that ball off, that throw goes all the way through. Escobar scores. Suzuki goes to third. You have a runner at third with less than 2 outs, a ground ball or a fly out. You get another run home. Hosmer cuts it off. Suzuki is out, and Minnesota gets just the 1 run.
And believe me, that's part of the World Championship formula, the Kansas City Royals. We've all seen it. And the fact that Dayton Moore, executive general manager of the year, was able to retain all the core players and sign a few along. Yeah, like you know, I was shocked to see him there when he cut that ball off
right by the third base line.
What was he doing there? Most first basemen, like I said, are trailing the runner at second base, behind the runner over there at second, if anything. But Hosmer has that Gold Glove ability to know where to be at the right place at the right time.
Kane is down on strikes. He was called out on a borderline pitch in the first, and now Santana strikes him out. That's Santana's third, and there are 2 down. If you can't watch the games on TV, you can now stream games live on your mobile device. Just go to your app store and download the free Fox Sports Go app. Log in and stream the Royals wherever you go. So Hosmer has already helped save a run. Now he'll try and drive in a run with Moustakas at second base, 2 down. Hosmer grounded sharply to Dozier at second base in the first inning.
And on that pitch, it was a changeup. So I think Ervin Santana and Kurt Suzuki, the battery mates there, want to make sure that they don't leave one of those down and not over. The Wizard of Haas, believe it.
Just got it in on him enough.
And really, that's what pitchers try to do when they're facing Eric Hosmer. 6'4", has long arms, long legs. You know, they don't want him to get extended, so they're going to try to jam him inside and then go change-ups away from him. And hope they don't miss out over the middle of the plate. If they do that, it's chuck and duck. Oops. He didn't want to do that one. And that might have been a rare curveball. That looked like a curve. Now, talking to my scout buddy, told me about Ervin Santana. I didn't see him throw hardly any curves at all this spring in spring training. But there was one there, and he's mixing in some different pitches now against Hosmer because he wants to leave Moose stranded over there at second base.
Back with the same pitch. 2-2. Impressive hair.
He's got it going.
Again, got it in on him. Still 2-2. Now, last time Santana pitched a fastball in on Hosmer, he came back with that breaking ball down and in. got Hosmer to chase it out of the strike zone. Will he follow the same pattern? Yep. 3-2. This time Hosmer saw it coming.
Good patience. Haas not afraid to take a walk either. Kendrys Morales in back of him. Added protection. Last year we witnessed it. Just these two guys intimidated pitchers, starters, and relievers alike. Hosmer hasn't had his career year yet, in my opinion.
Santana and Suzuki weren't quite on the same page, so the two veterans will talk it over. Just a reminder, as you enjoy a cold one, look forward to Miller Time later in tonight's game, brought to you by Miller Lite. Mike Moustakas with one out, doubled. Now standing there with two down. And a changeup, so he showed Hosmer everything. Fastball, sliders, a rare curve, and puts him away with a change, and the Royals are not able to turn the Moustakas double into a run.
Joe Goldberg back at Kauffman Stadium. Raymond Fuentes doing the damage with his first hit as a Kansas City Royal. He was the opening day right fielder for the Royals. That was the change for the Royals this season, with Gerard Dyson, of course, being on the disabled list. On the other side, for the Minnesota Twins, Miguel Sano is up at the plate, and he is part of a brand new look outfield for Minnesota. Their opening day outfield guys last year was Oswaldo Arcia, Jordan Schaefer, and the now retired Torrey Hunter. Neither of those guys have played a game in the big leagues this year. The opening day outfield this year for them, Eddie Rosario, who's not in there tonight. It's Danny Santana, who was their opening day shortstop last year. And then Byron Buxton, who they really like in the field, the youngster. And then this guy, he's in there to hit, but he's a third baseman. They put him out there almost every day during spring training in right field, and would you have it, he didn't get any balls. Barely any balls hit to him, and how'd you know, Ryan, too, that's a tough position to play, getting used to all the slices and the hooks. He has not had a lot of work out there, even though he spent a lot of time.
No, you're right, Joel. It's tough, first of all, at this level, any outfield position you play, but especially being an infielder and being a young player in the big leagues. This is going to be a tester for him this year.
2-2. Ventura struck him out with that same pitch back in the first inning when home plate umpire Vic Carapazza ruled that he went around on an abbreviated swing. And Target Field has about as tough a right field with all the different things that a ball can hit out there.
That's right. Big wall.
Ooh, got him looking this time. Ventura has struck out 4 and Sano twice.
Yeah, this one kind of locked him up here. It started up around his letters, and he thought, okay, that's going to be a ball, and then it just came right back down into the middle of the plate. If he swings at that, a nice easy swing, could do a lot of damage with it. That's called a hanging curve.
Trevor Plouffe with 1 out. I remember a game last year with the Twins, late or later in the season, and Sano was up late in the game, took a pitch that was really close. Everyone thought
right down the middle,
strike, game over. He got another pitch and hit a home run either to tie the game or put Minnesota ahead. Remember that?
It was huge, and I remember it was Franklin Morales.
There you go.
Who was pitching. And he threw a ball that split the plate in 2 right down the middle. Perfect pitch and wasn't called a strike. And he kind of, Morales didn't do anything to show the umpire up, but we're up here going, what? And then wouldn't you know, next pitch.
So things have a way of evening themselves out.
Yeah, I'll say.
And now tonight at least the borderline calls are not going his way. Another breaking ball. Plouffe makes contact and hits a little pop up into shallow right, and Fuentes takes charge. There are 2 down. This week only, T-Mobile customers can get a free season-long subscription to MLB.tv Premium. Go to T-Mobile.com/MLB to sign up now and catch every moment on America's fastest growing LTE network. And now Byung Ho Park. Didn't have much of an opportunity to talk about him when he batted in the 2nd inning and flied out to deep center field. First-year player out of the Korean baseball organization. He hit 53 home runs last year. Jung Ho Kang, an infielder for the Pirates, had a good year last year in his first season out of Korea, until he got his leg busted up in a slide late in the season. 105 combined home runs last year and the year before that.
Well, it's interesting. The player you're just talking about got off to a slow start in Pittsburgh, but they stayed with him. And then an injury to one of their shortstops got him in there, and then he got hot. And we'll see if Minnesota does the same thing here. Very difficult to change countries, let alone play in the grandest league in the world that there is, and to come here and try to hit this pitching right away. It'll be an adjustment for him. Now, having the opportunity to play in Japan like I did, the difference is in Korea and Japan, they don't have the big, strong pitchers like we have in America here that throw 95 to 100. It's more finesse, split fingers. Shoot, though, is a running fastball they throw in Japan. And so it was a lot tougher. You had to spread out your base of your feet more in Japan, and you had to really wait longer to hit their pitches. Here, he's going to get dominated by some fastballs. They're not used to that power pitching. Talking with Bert Blyleven, the Hall of Famer, their broadcaster, and I was asking about him. He said he's been overmatched a few times already in just 3 games.
There's Bert. He joined Joel and Monty in our pregame show tonight. Ball 4. That pitch was close. Ventura has walked 3. And one of those walks came back to bite him. That was in the 2nd inning with 1 down. He walked Eduardo Escobar, who eventually scored on the Suzuki double. Take me out to the ball game, the t-shirt says. He's not aware that there's a ball game going on right now, but he's happy.
Whole new generation of world champion Royals fans now.
Nice stop by Salvi to keep Park at first base.
Look at that Gold Glove there. He didn't close the glove on the ball on purpose. Salvi says he likes to open his glove, use his soft hands, and push the ball in front of him because he's quicker picking it up off the ground and firing it than he is getting from glove to hand, believe that or not.
And I guess the thinking behind that would be that as he is going to pick the ball up off the ground, he can get his feet into a good throwing position. Where here you're kind of handcuffed, right?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, he's we watched him the last 2-3 seasons, and I would see him do that at home plate, and he would block a ball and he would just keep his glove open. I'd said, Salvi, what are you doing? He says, it's easier for me. I just keep it in front of me. Push it out in front. Look at that good location there.
He's had a good changeup tonight.
Beautiful. That's where you want it, down below the knees. See where Salvi's target is, right there. See how he holds the 3 fingers on the back side of the ball there, and that's how he gets the same arm motion as his fastball, but because of the grip, it takes off velocity, 7-8 miles an hour, sometimes more. Because if you slow your arm motion down to slow the ball down, the hitter can pick that up.
Popped up. Infante backs out. And that's the inning. So 4 innings for Yordano Ventura in his first start of the year. And he's given up just 1 run.
Our Mazda game break goes back 42 years on this day, April 8th. The historic home run by Hammer and Hank, number 715, to become the all-time leader, April 8th, 1974. A couple of interesting notes here. Look at the video. The guy up on the top left there, that's legendary sideline reporter Craig Sager 42 years ago, looking like a 5th member of the Beatles. And the radio announcers for that game, well, Vin Scully, of course, for the Dodgers, Ryan's hero, who is now in his last season, and on the other side for the Braves, Milo Hamilton.
There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron. Everyone's heard that call before. As Morales grounds out to Kendrys Morales, and certainly wish the best. Craig Sager in another fight against cancer, and he spent a portion of his career after actually that Hank Aaron home run here in Kansas City. Met his wife here in Kansas City. Was here in the early 80s.
Beautiful family he has.
Alex struck out in a changeup in the 2nd inning against Santana. Broken bat, and there you go. The effects of the new netting. Alex is out, and we knew it wasn't going to take very long. We had the commissioner with us on Tuesday talking about how the Royals extended the netting behind home plate, and they exceeded what Major League Baseball was asking for. Last year, that bat goes into the crowd.
Yeah, and with that type of height, as high it was on top of the screen, that's coming down with that jagged edge, possibly saved somebody's life.
And just think, that fella never would have had a second date with her.
You just never know. Hey, but another thing that's different is the rope on the netting in back of home plate here at Kauffman Stadium is thinner, and it's actually easier to see through than it was last year. There's no seams in it. There's no large ropes that hold it together. It's all held together. It's all just one screen. You notice that difference right away.
And fans that were first disappointed that their seats right behind the dugouts were, I say, obstructed in quotations, because the netting said that really they hardly even noticed it. And that's where fans get injured the most, right over the dugouts, those late swings and those line drives, and there is very little reaction time. There's a reason why there's netting in front of all the dugouts now. I remember when those dugouts were wide open in every major league ballpark. So you have professional athletes with the best reflexes in the world, and they need to be protected by the netting. So certainly the fans right behind them need to be protected as well. Salvador Perez, he got the Royals' 2-run rally started in the second inning with 2 outs and nobody on. He was down 0-2. He got the count to 3-2. Santana was 1 pitch away from a 1-2-3 inning. And then Salvi singled, Infante doubled, and then Fuentes hit the 2-run single. But this time Santana gets Salvi, who has a smile from foul pole to foul pole. And Santana has his first 1-2-3 inning. Dono Ventura and his season debut, allowing just 1 run, 2 hits in his first 4 innings. Tomorrow, it's Ian Kennedy making his Royals debut in our University of Kansas Hospital injury report. Kennedy was supposed to start on Tuesday against the Mets. He had a tight left hamstring. He was not concerned. The Royals were not that concerned, so they just decided to move him back. And he will pitch tomorrow night against Tommy Malone, who's given the Royals some trouble in the past, and then Edinson Volquez and Ricky Nolasco on Sunday afternoon, and then the Royals hit the road for the first time this year.
Yeah, we got baseball. It's back.
Kurt Suzuki, Byron Buxton, and Brian Dozier are coming up. Suzuki drove in Escobar with one down in the second inning with a double to left center field, picking up his first hit of the year and his second RBI. On the ground to third and foul. Pitch count is more of an issue tonight than it was during the Mets series. And because there were so many days off around the Mets series that the bullpen was rested, really didn't have to worry about overextending anybody. But now the Royals play 10 games in 10 days, so they want their starters to go deeper, and Ventura is moving up on 80 pitches in the fifth inning. It's been pretty efficient after that long first inning. And he strikes out Suzuki, got him with a breaking ball, and that's 5 for Ventura in 4 1/3 innings. All right, let's answer our trivia question. The Royals' 3 winningest pitchers before the age of 25. I'm going to go with Brett Saberhagen, Paul Splittorff. What do you have, Hud?
I got Busby, Dennis Leonard, Saberhagen, and Gooby. I just threw a lot of names out there hoping one would stick.
We'll pick 3 of them. What are your top 3? I'll go Saberhagen, Splittorff, and I'll go Busby too.
I'm going Busby, Gubazon, and Leo.
I guess we're supposed to keep guessing.
Yeah, well, look, you know,
Did we get any of them right? Gonna have to hurry. Buxton can really fly. Nice play by Salvador Perez to help Ventura get his 6th strikeout. Well, we can wait a little bit now. How many does Ryan have right? I have 1 right. How many does Hud have right? Hud's got 2. Nice.
I threw a lot of names out.
Okay, so what were your 3 again?
Well, Busby, Gooby, and Dennis Leonard. Leo. Mark Gubazon.
So we both pit Busby.
And you know, I didn't even cheat this time either, because you know I had plenty of time to do research and I didn't do it. I just started thinking about some of the guys that started their careers here and had long careers. I threw Apier in there too, but he's not one of my 3.
Well, let's see. Who are they? Dozier singled in the first inning. Ventura struck him out in the 3rd. 3-1.
You're going to make us wait for the next inning? Obviously, I don't think they want to show it until we get them all.
That is the 4th walk given up by Ventura. Dozier's on with 2 down. Okay. All bets are down. Chips are on the table. Saberhagen.
Tom Gordon.
You had 1. We each had 1. And then Tom Gordon.
I had Gooby
and Busby and Leo.
Yeah, my bad.
It's okay. We both got 1. Tom Gordon. It's easy to forget about him because he made hay as a big leaguer as a reliever. But when he came up with the Royals, was a starter. Danny Santana with Dozier at first base and 2 down. He chops it out to Escobar. Will go the long way, and that's the inning. 5 innings, 1 run allowed by Yordano Ventura. They bat in the bottom of the 5th inning, and Panera takes us around the league. The San Diego Padres played the first 3 games of their season and were shut out in all 3 games. So what do you do to fix that? You go to Colorado, and they beat the Rockies today 13-6. The Cardinals are 0-3 for the first time since 2007, and for the 3rd consecutive year, the Detroit Tigers are off to a good start. On the Rockies side, in that game in Colorado with San Diego, Trevor Story hit 2 more home runs.
Amazing. Rookie. Young first-year player.
And I remember we played the Rockies in spring training, and they didn't know who their shortstop was going to be because Jose Reyes is still dealing with his legal issue. So enter Trevor Story to hit 6 home runs in his first 4 big league games.
I would imagine it'd be tough to get him out of that lineup.
2-2 on Omar Infante. He doubled and scored in the Royals' 2-run 2nd inning.
You get off to a start like that, especially to start your career, that's amazing. Even if you're a veteran and you get off to a start like that, that's great. You're going to have a good year. You know it. Especially 6 home runs in not even a week. That's crazy.
Big strikeout night tonight. Santana has struck out 6. Yordano Ventura has struck out 6, and we're not even done with 5 innings. And now Ray Fuentes. We had our Jeep drive of the game back in the 2nd inning.
Timely first pitch he saw. He was ready. Runners in scoring position. That's usually the pitch the pitcher wants to get over for a strike. He got him before Santana got him.
He can really run, but didn't quite get that ball far enough away from home plate. Had the right idea. Kurt Suzuki throws him out, and there are 2 away.
Great idea. If he puts that down the 3rd base line a little bit more down the line, he has a base hit easy. Check it out. Plouffe even with the bag, but a little bit too much towards the pitcher.
Slider for a strike to Escobar, who has popped to 2nd and grounded back to Santana. Up the middle, past Santana and into center field, and Escobar is on with 2 down.
Back-to-back sliders. You throw him one for a strike, then you throw him another one in the same spot. He was on it and ready. He told me before the game today, Escobar, I'm going to just look out over the middle of the plate, out over. I'm not going to try to look for any certain pitches. I'm going to look in the zone, and he got it. See if we can get a little 2-out lightning started here again.
Mike Moustakas picked up his first hit of the year in the 3rd inning when he doubled to left. In the 1st inning, he reached on an error by Twins second baseman Brian Dozier.
Some friendly words exchanged by Santana and Escobar.
Long run for Plouffe, and he runs out of room.
One of the most inspirational moments I thought in Tuesday's game, the ring ceremony, was the first pitch of the game. 96-year-old World War II veteran. Couldn't throw the ball to home plate. We waited. Everybody was anticipating throwing. Moose finally walked out and said, "Sir, look, it's on you, and you can do whatever you want." I asked Moose before the game, what was the conversation about? He said, well, he was saying that the veteran would say, "Can I get up now?" He says, "Sir, you served us. You can do whatever you want. What do you want to do?" He says, "Well, I'm a little tired now. I think I'll just stay here." Moose said it was a special moment for him.
Great gesture too, to just think about, to take off his hat.
Moose,
you know, in tribute to the veteran when he went out there.
Right.
That's the first thing that I saw when he went out to. He was supposed to catch the pitch, and he went out to talk to him and took his hat off and Mike Moustakas has always shown a lot of respect for our military, and even when he was as low as he could be a couple of years ago offensively, when they would salute veterans in between innings here or in other stadiums, he'd always take time to applaud.
Yep, it's wonderful to see these young players, and for most fans across the nation, we see really tip their cap and honor those who protect us, put their lives on the line. Those are real heroes.
Two and one.
Nice pitchers duel we have going here tonight at the K. Ervin Santana, he's really taking his time now with 2 outs, concentrating on the number 2 hitter in the lineup, and Moustakas. I don't want to make a mistake.
Now 2-2.
Especially with that wind gushing out to right field. That's Moose where he likes to hit his homers. You see Ervin Santana using a lot of split fingers tonight. That one didn't do much. It just stayed up in the zone.
Interesting. I was watching the Twins tonight in their alignment against Moustakas, and you see that there and you go, oh, that's no surprise. We've seen that. But they actually were more straight up. The shortstop, Escobar, was on the left side of second base until there were 2 strikes. Then they went into the shift. And a little bloop. Plouffe had to wait for it to bounce, so that little shift affected the Twins, and they weren't able to make the play on a ball that barely cleared the infield grass. If they had stayed where they were, Plouffe would have made that play easily, but that's the first time I've seen a team shift like that with 2 strikes.
Yeah, you see him right here. He moved over in this direction, and really that opened up the lane for Moose to doink one in there. How about that little jam shot? Broke his bat, and Plouffe, he had no chance on that. So nice chip shot. Keep the inning alive. Lorenzo Cain with a pair of strikeouts tonight. He's due.
Looking in the first inning, swinging in the third. Both strikeouts coming with the slider. Slider down and away, ball 1. The Royals scored 2 runs in the second inning after 2 outs and nobody on base. In this inning, 2 outs, nobody on base. Escobar singles and Moustakas singles. Foul tip, 1-1.
Well, you know, it looks like she's really cold because it is with the wind blowing. There's a little wind chill in the air.
Inside, 2-1. Well, especially with the recent weather that we had. I mean, it was in the 60s and the 70s.
All right, here's that replay now. This pitch here, it sets up the other ones. He wants to get Lorenzo out on the slider away, and so he sets up that fastball inside, right down the middle.
Well, he got in his head.
He did,
thinking about that slider.
Right.
I think he'd like to have this pitch back again.
Absolutely.
Fox Tracks, brought to you by the Missouri Lottery. Lays off the slider, full count, and now the runners will be going.
Santana doesn't want to lose Lorenzo Cain with Hosmer on deck.
And we'll do it again. That's the most hittable slider that Cain has seen all night from Santana.
See how he's on side of the baseball right there when he throws it. And he puts a little bit of pressure with that middle finger, and that allows it to break.
Runners go. Cain takes a strike. So in his first two at bats, it was the slider, and this time around it's the fastball, as Santana and Escobar continue some friendly trash talking. Miller Lite. Giordano Ventura is having an excellent evening here tonight. 5 innings pitched. Look at the 6 strikeouts. And here comes the Miller time. Great defense always. The signature of the world champions is the way they play defense. They save extra pitches thrown by their pitchers. They save runs. And they wear the gold. 3 of them. And potentially they could have 5 with Moustakas and Cain. Those guys are all waiting for their first Gold Gloves. Believe me, 5 out of the 9. It's possible that the Royals could all wear gold. And if Alex stays healthy again this year, he should be back into consideration again. I think, I know this is maybe going out on a limb, but I think he's going to have a better defensive season than Yoenis Cespedes this year, who is in the National League. I understand that, but it was Cespedes who won it last year in the American League.
Yeah, and I forgot about Alex. I mean, there's gold all over that infield and outfield.
Joe Mauer has grounded to short, and he has walked. Minnesota has 2 hits in 5 innings against Ventura. Giordano has walked 4, and one of those walks turned into Minnesota's only run. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Luke Hochevar with Ventura about to make his 90th pitch. Just starting to loosen up in the left field bullpen. Hochevar can fill any role. 7th inning, 8th inning, he could close. But I get the feeling he's going to have to get used to warming up very quickly, because Ned Yost in both of the games with the Mets brought him in the middle of the inning. And now the count goes from 0-2 to 3-2 against Mauer. In the middle of innings, when trouble happened very quickly. So maybe Hochevar is this year's fireman. That is 5 walks given up by Yordano Ventura, and this one is a leadoff walk in a 1-run game. This season at Kauffman Stadium, the weekends start early because every Thursday home game is Buck Night. Come enjoy Royals baseball while saving some cash. You'll enjoy delicious hot dogs and peanuts for just $1. So get your tickets now for Thursday Buck Nights at Kauffman Stadium. 1-800-6-ROYALS or online at royals.com/promotions. And now the dangerous Miguel Sano, who is 0 for 2. Ventura struck him out swinging in the first and looking in the fourth, both times with his curveball. 1-1. Close, but down and away. 2-1.
It's where you want to miss with this big fella, away and down.
Two and two, really tied him up. I think his most consistent pitch tonight has been his changeup.
I would agree. It's got some nice movement towards the right-handed hitter. That one was elevated a little bit, but it was off the plate. Good spot.
Now 3-2. 97 pitches thrown by Ventura.
Nice to see Ventura with very calm mound presence tonight. He's not working too quickly. He's not making any gyrations out there. You know, he's very much under control. Nice to see it.
6 walks, and that might be it. It is. So again, Hochevar comes on to put out a fire. Minnesota has 2 on, nobody out. It's a Chevy call to the bullpen. Royals baseball is brought to you by your local Kansas City area Chevy dealers. Visit us for great prices on the all-new 2016 Malibu. By Panera Bread, food as it should be, with 24 Kansas City metro locations. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price every day. Well, Yordano Ventura only gave up 2 hits in 5+ innings. He walked 6, and that ties a career high for him. So he hands the ball off to Luke Hochevar. And here it's Maurer at second base, Sano at first, and Trevor Plouffe at the plate. It's the 3rd time that Hochevar has appeared in 3 Royals games, and all 3 he has come in the middle of the inning and in the middle of a mess.
Yep. Has the confidence, it has the pitches, that's for sure. Good hard fastball, overhand curve, cutter. Loves the cutter.
There it is, 0-1 to Plouffe. He grounded out to short and flied to right against Ventura.
He'll take that. Thank you. Trevor Plouffe 2 for 2 with a home run in his career off of Hochevar.
Didn't mean to. Might have got rid of his finger too.
Ooh, you hope not. He sure doesn't hope not. Let's see where this got him. That's a good running fastball inside, and looks like it caught him right off the knob. Boy, man, he's fortunate there. Ouch. That would have hurt.
Fly ball into right center. Maurer tags. Now Sano goes back to tag. Sano holds, and Maurer goes to third. So it's a productive out for Plouffe as he gets the tying run to third base with 1 out. And now Byung-Ho Park out on a fly ball to deep center, his first time up, and then he walked in the 4th. That time the cutter is outside, ball 1.
So Hochevar induced 2 ground ball double plays last season. That's what he's looking for here, a little lane ball.
That's out of play. 1 ball, 1 strike. Minnesota last year, even though their overall offensive numbers were not great, they were 3rd in the major leagues with batting average with runners in scoring position. The Royals were 2nd. But their biggest problem so far this year, and it's just their 4th game, is hitting with runners in scoring position. They are 0 for 2 tonight, and now 2 for 23 this year. Look at that curve. That thing just came out of the scoreboard.
That's a beauty. Ooh. Boy, look at that rotation. 12-6 on the clock.
And now a little chat with the count 1-2. That was the pitch that Hochevar used to get out of the game on Sunday. And Hochevar came on in the 8th inning in that game with the tying run in scoring position after the Mets scored 3 in the 8th against Joakim Soria. And it was that same pitch. It was a breaking ball against Asdrubal Cabrera.
Whew. Beauty way out of the strike zone.
And now he's ahead of Park. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Mauer's at third, Sano's at first. They both reach with walks against Ventura. Struck him out. So he came back with the same pitch. This one was out of the strike zone. And there are 2 down.
Perfectly executed curveball. Starts out belt high, ends up on the ground. Pitch before it starts up a little bit higher, maybe right around the shoulders, around the letters, and then it drops it in for a perfect curve for a strike. That was a great pitch there, 1 and 2. That's a little teaser. You want to make sure that is out of the strike zone, and it was.
And now Eduardo Escobar with runners at first and third, 2 down. Down and in, almost got him on the back foot. Mauer walked. Sano walked. Then Plouffe flied to center. That got Mauer to third. And Hochevar, who was hoping for a double play or a strikeout, got the strikeout, and now he just has to get through Escobar. Up the middle and past Infante. So Escobar comes through to tie the game. And Minnesota gets a rare hit with a runner in scoring position. And the leadoff walk turns into the tying run.
Eduardo Escobar, he's a tough out. I mean, he keeps his bat in the zone a long time, short to the ball, sprays the ball all around. He got a good pitch to hit. Hoch missed out over the plate, and he paid for it.
So Escobar has scored a run, and now he has driven in a run. That run charged to Ventura. Ventura is still responsible for Sano at second base. And now Hochevar and Kurt Suzuki. On the ground left side, Alcides Escobar goes to second. And that's the inning. So the Twins tie it. They get a leadoff walk, and with 2 down, Eduardo Escobar comes through. So we go to the bottom of the 6th inning. Middle of the order coming up. Hosmer, Morales, and Gordon.
Not Bieber. Yes, the Royals trump the Beliebers, but that's Eric Hosmer the other night. This video has made the rounds, trying to leave the Justin Bieber concert and looking like a member of the Beatles. Of course, all of the teenagers that were mobbing him have no idea who the Beatles are. They had just been screeching at a high level, enjoying the Justin Bieber concert. I said, Haas, come on, are you really a believer, as they call them? And he said, I don't mind his work, it's okay, but this was about an outing a team outing. He said Mike Moustakas got a box at Sprint Center, and they took the wives and their girlfriends, and the result was him getting mobbed. He grounds out there. Alex Gordon quipped yesterday that they sent after the concert Hosmer out first so he could be a diversion, and then they could all leave. Haas says to me, what's that about? And I said, come on, you know Alex Gordon's sense of humor. And Alex said, oh, yeah, I made the whole thing up. That was a joke. Both Gordon and Hosmer admit that with Hosmer's popularity right now, might be time to move to the suburbs.
They're rock stars.
He's too young to be living in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Sixth inning is our Sonic Slam inning. Our contestant is Keith Boucher from Blue Eye, Missouri. And if the Royals hit a home run in this inning, Keith wins $300. If the Royals hit a grand slam out of the park, Keith wins $25,000 from Sonic and the Royals. Morales has flied to center and grounded out to second base. Taking all the way, 2 balls and 1 strike. So they're due. It's only their 3rd game.
Yep. Well, this is a big ballpark. And we were talking about career years earlier, how I didn't believe that Hosmer's had his yet. Morales, he had a heck of a year with the Angels in '09. 34 homers, 108 ribbies. Last year, only 22 home runs and 106 RBIs. So playing in this ballpark here will do that. It's large. Hard to hit homers.
It's the first walk given up by Irvin Santana. There are the dimensions. 330 up the lines, 387 to the gaps. And 410 to straightaway center field. Low to Alex Gordon, who has struck out and grounded out to first base.
The Royals don't rely on home runs. They're a contact hitting team that find the gaps. Singles, doubles, speed. Going first to third, pressuring defenses.
And what the Royals have not done tonight like they normally do, that's Ryan Presley warming up in the Twins bullpen, is Santana has struck out 7. And the Royals last year were by far the toughest team to strike out in the major leagues. They had about 300 fewer strikeouts than the league average.
Irvin's pitched a nice game tonight. He's done a good job spotting his pitches. One mistake really was the first pitch to Ray Fuentes. He just threw it right down the middle. First pitch, runners at second and third for the Royals. And Fuentes dropped it into right field for a base hit, scored them both.
And now 3-1 to Alex. As hard as it is to hit one out to left field, left center, or straightaway center, because it's either into the wind or into a crosswind, if you get it up in the air in right field or right center, that ball's going to get some help. Close. Ball 4. So Santana goes 5 innings, actually 5 1/3 innings without walking one hitter. And now he's walked back to back right after the Twins tied the game in the top of the 6th inning.
Well, Paul Molitor, he's contemplating on going to the bullpen right now, but he's also with 1 out. He also knows that Salvador Perez sometimes has a knack to hit into a double play, so he might just leave him in here for this one, hoping that Salvi will do that.
It'll bit inside. Salvi had a great at bat in the second inning with 2 outs and nobody on. He was down 0-2. He got the count to 3-2. He singled. Then Infante doubled, and then Fuentes hit a 2-run single. That rally all started with that at bat by Perez. And now he's ahead in the count, 2-0.
Yeah, that pitch was up a little bit. Irvin, in his first start of the year, only went 2 innings and threw 39 pitches in a rain-delayed outing. So he's not tired, but he's not repeating his delivery, and his mechanics are leaving the ball a little bit off. Royals being a little selective. Salvi wants to jump on this one.
Got him to chase a slider on 2-0. Two down. If you want to host your company, your family, a sports team, or other groups here at Kauffman Stadium, if you have a special occasion coming up this spring, single game suites and party areas are now available for regular season games throughout the month of April and May. Just call 816-504-4040 option 4 or email groupsales@royals.com for rates and availability. Paul Molitor goes to the mound. Ryan Presley went to the gate in the right field bullpen. He was expecting to come in, but Presley goes back to the mound. Paul Molitor stays with the veteran. And Omar Infante, who has doubled and scored a run against Irvin Santana, has a chance here to put the Royals in front. Santana's making his 100th pitch, and it's cut on and missed 0-1. Lays off the slider. 1 ball, 1 strike. Crack bat. A chance for Sano, and he makes the play. So Sano, who hasn't been tested much in spring training or the regular season, runs up to make the play on Infante and end the inning. 7th inning. This is game 1 of 3 between the Royals and the Minnesota Twins.
Here we go. Raymond Fuentes gets his first hit as a Royal, knocks in a pair. Salvador Perez and Infante, who doubled. And then when Hochevar came in, had 2 strikes on him, left a fastball up for Eduardo Escobar. And he's able to tie it up.
Irvin Santana has gone 6, given up 2 runs. Yordano Ventura went 5 and then faced 2 batters in the 6th. They both walked. And Joe Mauer, who was the first of those 2 walks, ended up scoring that tying run after the Escobar base hit. So now it's Kelvin Herrera to get Byron Buxton, Brian Dozier, and Danny Santana. Buxton looked like he had homered to left field back in the 2nd inning, but that ball got caught up in the strong wind blowing in from left. And then Alex Gordon made a nice sliding play on the warning track. Buxton also struck out. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Alex Gordon doing a great job of staying with this. He was playing Buxton over there towards center field, but picks a perfect route and was able to glove the last out. Herrera, back-to-back sliders to go along with that 100-mile-an-hour fastball and his 89-mile-an-hour changeup. He's got great stuff. Talked about a slider that he didn't use a whole lot in the last couple of years. This year he's confident with it.
98 with that fastball, 2-2.
I think in 2014 he threw it maybe a couple of times. The guy hit a home run off of it and then he didn't use it at all. Then he started messing around with it last year, and now he's a 3-pitch pitcher. Sometimes, you know, if you're not convicted with your pitch and you don't have confidence in it, you can get in trouble with it if you throw it. Comes with maturity.
Right by him. That's 8 strikeouts for Royals pitchers tonight against Twins hitters. Academy Sports and Outdoors leaderboard. Mentioned earlier, the Royals won their 3rd straight season series against Minnesota last year, and they had a winning series against every team in the division, wrapping up that division last year by 12 games. Dozier fouls it back over our heads. Dozier's been on base twice. Brian Dozier never hit more than 9 home runs in a full season in the minor leagues. And in his 4 years in the big leagues, he has hit 6, 18, 23, and 28.
Wow. He found it.
And he plays for a team that also plays in a big ballpark. I mean, it's not like he's playing for the Orioles.
Yeah, but the ball does jump out of target left field, and he's a dead pull hitter. He found himself. He got into a groove, a lot like the rookie story for the Colorado Rockies, and now he's found himself. He has confidence in what he can do. That's
line fair, right on the line.
Really quick hands on that one.
So Minnesota has the go-ahead run at second base with 1 out. Dozier, who was hitless in the 3-game Minnesota-Baltimore series, has 2 hits and a walk tonight.
You don't see many hitters that face Herrera on a pitch like this that's up and in get their hands on it so quickly. Look at that. He's got a little stride out, but man, just really takes those hands to the ball and kept it right on the chalk line.
Danny Santana was 0 for 3 against Yordano Ventura. Now the Twins are faced again with hitting with a runner in scoring position. That's high for ball 1. Minnesota had been 2 out of 24 this year with a runner in scoring position when Eduardo Escobar came through with 2 down in the 6th inning to tie the game. 1 ball and 1 strike on Santana. Ground to Infante, 2 outs, and Dozier goes to 3rd. MLB.TV Premium is the #1 live streaming sports service. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD at home, in the office, or on the go. You'll get real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch-by-pitch tracking, and more. MLB.Premium also includes a free at-bat premium subscription. Blackout and other restrictions apply. There are 2 open bases, and even though he doesn't hit like he used to, that's still Joe Mauer at the plate. 3 batting titles and an MVP, and a very young, less experienced right-hand batter on deck in Miguel Sano.
El Salvi talked about it with Herrera. With Herrera's pitches, I mean, above average fastball and changeup. Slider's not too shabby. He just decided to try to go after him, and if you're going to pitch him away, the defense is playing that way.
Two and 0. Changeup, 91 miles an hour, 2-1.
Yep, that's some guy's best fastball, but he's blessed with a tremendously strong arm. I mean, just great follow through, same arm speed as the fastball. That's an extremely effective pitch.
It's a little surprised that they were pitching him away, unless they wanted to pitch him away and off the plate, which they did, because as big as Mauer is, he can slap the ball into left field with the best of them. And that's kind of at times playing into his strengths. And there you go, fastball middle away, he hits 301. And again away, so that might have been the old unintentional intentional walk with a couple of bases to work with. And now it's Herrera and Sano. That is the 7th walk given up by a Royals pitcher tonight.
Yep, and 3 to Mauer.
So a lot of non-contact plate appearances tonight. I mentioned the 8 strikeouts and now 7 walks. Sano walked in the 6th inning, and he struck out in his first 2 at-bats, all that against Yordano Ventura.
Yeah, those 8 strikeouts you mentioned, that gives the total from Minnesota in their 4 games now at 43 strikeouts. 4 games.
Close. 1-0.
That looked like that split the plate in 2. Must have been high.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Change up at the last minute has a little dip to it right underneath the bat of Sano.
And now breaking ball makes it 1-2. That changeup was a gutsy pitch. I mean, Herrera throws 100, and changeup that's fading back into this guy, boy, it's got to be perfect.
And it was.
Overthrew it, 2-2.
Yeah, but you were right. When Mauer stepped in, you talked about the experience that Mauer has compared to Sano, and he walked him, and now he's looking for another strikeout here if he can get it.
Oh, got him looking. Kelvin Herrera. That is so much more than just a third pitch.
Better believe it, that locked up Sano. And you know, he's got to go.
Scored a run in the second, a run in the sixth. The Royals got both of their runs in the bottom of the second inning. And those runs on Ray Fuentes' first hit as a Royal, driving in Perez and Infante. And now Fuentes will try and set the table as he faces Ryan Presley, who comes on relief of Urban Santana. This is the third appearance of the year for Ryan Presley. He pitched 3 innings in the Minnesota-Baltimore series, giving up just 1 hit, and he struck out 3.
Yep, 6'3", 210 pounds. Got a 90 to 93 4-mile-an-hour fastball, curveball, occasional changeups.
On the corner, 2-1. Two and 2 on Fuentes, who also tried to bunt his way on in the 5th inning. Didn't bunt it far enough away from home plate, and the catcher Suzuki threw him out. Fuentes, Escobar, and Moustakas. And if anybody gets on, Lorenzo Cain. On the ground to Dozier. Close, but out. Dozier, a little difficulty there getting the ball out of his glove. One down. Let's go to Joel Goldberg.
Well, our Mazda Game Break, guys, takes us to a very difficult play for anyone, certainly Cubs fans, to watch. Last night, one of their young stars, Kyle Schwarber in left, collides with the center fielder, Dexter Fowler. He would go down and be carted off, and they received the worst of news today, an MRI, that Schwarber has torn his ACL and LCL in his left knee. He is done for the year. Just turned 23 last month. Last postseason, hit .333 with 5 homers, a left fielder and a catcher. Theo Epstein, their president, today quoted as saying, 24 hours ago, I thought we were really well positioned to win, in large part because of Kyle's presence on this team. And now we're really well positioned to win for Kyle. Joe Maddon has a lot of options, but that was a big one.
Escobar singles with one out. That's his second hit. And the go-ahead run is on.
Yeah, Joel, that was just nasty looking at that. Oh man, and, you know, showing a lot of range out there, but he never really picked up Fowler, the center fielder. You gotta be alive when you're running for a ball in the gap. You gotta take a peek, you know, to see where your guy is. But too bad he couldn't get off of his feet before he got caught. That's terrible.
And especially when you run that far, eventually you're thinking at some point, I'm going to run into somebody. But that football mentality that he has, a former catcher, he was just doing everything he could to get to that ball.
Showing some pretty good speed and range. Unfortunate.
Mike Moustakas has 2 hits tonight. He was hitless in the 2 games against the Mets. He reached on an error in the first. He doubled to left in the third, and then reached with an infield single in the 5th. Way outside for ball 1. That's new.
Moose yard. Like it. And that's right where Moose likes to hit him.
Over the outside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Minnesota last year was 10th in the league in bullpen ERA. The Royals were 1st. And they had the lowest strikeout per 9 inning ratio in the league. So their bullpen wasn't great, and it wasn't a bullpen that would come on and strike out a lot. Presley is distracted by Escobar.
And Presley doing a nice job of getting that ball home. 1.19, 1.29. Anything under 1.3 is good. Anything over 1.3, 1.35 with a good jump, you can steal it.
Low. Moustakas puts his hand up to tell Escobar to hold tight, as Suzuki was able to get it cleanly. Isn't that amazing that, you know, the difference between a stolen base and being caught on average is a 1/10 of a second.
That's right. Everything's got to be done just right. Good quick release home, and catcher Suzuki threw out a runner earlier tonight on a beautiful throw right over the bag.
And that's low. 3 balls, 1 strike. Moustakas walks. So with 1 out, Royals get 2 base runners. And now Lorenzo Cain. Let's look at our Toyota League leaders for tonight. The Royals with a 1-1 record, so it's very early, obviously, and yet the Royals have an impressive streak. 255 major league days at or above 500. That's the longest streak in team history. It's also the longest current streak in the major leagues. We were both surprised that the Cubs were second on that list. If there is a motivated hitter right now, it's Lorenzo Cain. He is 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. He has good numbers in just 4 at-bats against Ryan Pressly. Slider is low, 1 ball and no strikes. Cain struck out looking with Moustakas at first base in the first inning. He struck out swinging with Moustakas at second base in the 3rd inning, and then struck out looking in the 5th with Moustakas and Escobar on base, and that's who's on base here. Ooh, good swing. 1 ball, 1 strike.
That was heading towards right center. That's the right approach. Think opposite field, react in if the pitch is in, but right out over the middle of the plate. Oh man, he just missed that right off Suzuki's right shoulder. Perfect swing. Just a tad off.
Two and one. Again, trying to go the other way with that breaking ball. 2-2.
He's just staying underneath it. Looks like he might have a little bit too much of an uppercut.
That will be out of play to the right field side.
So Lorenzo Cain with a little 2-strike approach. Now that pitch by Pressly was right on his hands inside. You can see him fighting it off to right field. He's just trying to shorten up that swing a little bit. Get Escobar home.
Got him. A 4-strikeout night for Lorenzo Cain.
Took just enough off of this. Nice big curve there. Got a lot off of it. And you can see had Lorenzo Cain out in front. Again, thinking right field, but a well executed pitch by Pressly.
And now it's a lefty, Eric Hosmer, coming up. Paul Molitor goes to his lefty, Fernando Abad. 2 on, 2 out, tied game in the 7th inning.
Royals World Series pride every time you go for a drive. Head to the K tomorrow when the Royals take on the Twins at 6:15. Show up early as the first 10,000 fans to the gates will receive a World Series championship car flag presented by Pepsi. Turn your ride into a Royal float. Get your tickets at Royals.com by calling 1-800-6-ROYALS.
Fernando Abad. These are his numbers last year with the A's. He spent the previous 2 seasons with Oakland. He's pitched with the Nationals and the Astros. And he will face Eric Hosmer for the first time. Hosmer comes up with Escobar at second base, Moustakas at first, 2 down.
He's got a good fastball, mid to upper 90s, curveball change. You got a little crossfire, deceptive delivery.
Almost hit him on the belt, 1-0. Hosmer is grounded to second, struck out, and grounded to first.
He'll use a 4-seamer against left-handers with a curve. Righties, he's going to use a sinker and a changeup. There's the curve.
A tilt to that pitch, 2 balls and 1 strike.
And it's funky. It's coming out of like a sidearm crossfire. Like I said, it adds some deception. Oz did a nice job taking that pitch down. You got a good look at it. Starts right at you, it's going to be a strike. If it starts out over the plate, it's going to be off the plate and away. That's what hitters are looking for, that release point.
Inside, 3-1 with Morales on deck. Suzuki asked for time. Royals stranded 2 in the 5th inning. They stranded 2 in the 6th and are hoping to avoid that here in the 7th. Their only 2 runs came back in the 2nd inning on a base hit from Fuentes. And Hosmer takes a walk. The Royals have walked 7 Twins hitters tonight. 2 have come around to score. The Royals did not have 1 walk in the first 5 innings, and now Twins pitchers have walked 4 over the last 2 innings, and the Royals are still trying to turn one of those walks into a run.
Be nice here. There's Neil Allen, pitching coach in his 2nd year with Paul Molitor. Leaving Morales on the right side of the plate. Morales, nice numbers with him loaded up. Lousy single would work nicely here.
Breaking ball for a strike. Morales 3 days ago in the game against the Mets and Noah Syndergaard, really one of the only great scoring opportunities the Royals had. Morales came up with the bases loaded, 2 down. Syndergaard struck him out on 3 pitches, and now here's Morales in a tie game in the 7th inning with the bases loaded and 2 down. 0-2.
Okay, they tried to come in. Morales knew it a little bit too quick in there. It's a long strike. Now Abad has options. He's got a changeup he'll use against righties. Maybe a little backdoor curveball. Try to get it on the outside part of the plate.
Strike 3 over the outside. A fastball that cut late. And the Royals leave the bases loaded. They have stranded 7 in the last 3 innings. inning. This week only, T-Mobile customers can get a free season-long subscription to MLB.TV Premium. Just go to T-Mobile.com/MLB to sign up now and catch every moment on America's fastest-growing LTE network. Coming up tomorrow, NASCAR goes under the lights in the Lone Star State in the first night race of the year with the Sprint Cup Racing sponsored by KFC at 6 p.m. only on Fox. Watch it live on Fox Sports Go. Joakim Soria will pitch the 8th inning. Trevor Plouffe, Byung-Ho Park, and Eduardo Escobar scheduled to hit for Minnesota. Soria struggled on Sunday night against the Mets, charged with 3 runs in 1 inning, and then bounced back nicely on Tuesday. And he's ahead 0-2 on Plouffe, who is 0 for 3 tonight.
Soria with a nice 4-pitch mix. Last season, sparkling ERA. Anything under 3 nowadays, that's a good ERA. 64 strikeouts and 67 in the 3rd innings. That's good for a guy that doesn't throw 95 miles an hour. Relies on his command.
Two and 2 on Plouffe. There were so many games when Joakim Soria was with the Royals his first time. He'd throw his fastball, and the way the hitter would swing, the immediate reaction was look to the radar gun and expecting to see 94, 95, 96, and it was 91, 92. His fastball just jumps on hitters. There you go, 92, and Plouffe swung at it like it was 96.
That's right, extremely effective. Hitters call a pitcher like him sneaky quick.
Breaking ball stayed up to Byung-Ho Park. He is 0 for 2 with a walk tonight. '89.
Yep, just that smooth, clean delivery. Good arm slot.
Hit well into left center field.
That's not coming back.
And Byung-Ho Park has parked one, his first major league home run, jumping on a hanging breaking ball. And Minnesota takes a 3-2 lead. And that right there is why Minnesota signed Park.
That was a hanging curve. I mean, that's belt high, right out over the plate. And against that crosswind, that ball was mashed. Here it is again. Perfect swing.
Outside, 1-1 on Eduardo Escobar.
That ball's out in any league in any country.
Now, some of the Korean baseball organization hitters were known for their flamboyant bat flips. I don't know if Park was one of them, but that was kind of a Ben Zobrist-like put the bat down gently.
With the do not disturb sign on it. Yeah, no, that was very classy. He knew it. He knew he got it. Whenever a hitter hits one like that and you barrel it up, he just kind of said, all right.
Now 2 down to Kurt Suzuki. Suzuki drove in Minnesota's first run back in the 2nd inning with a double, scoring Escobar.
You might just stay fastballs on Gung Ho Park. See if you can blow him by him. He's used to seeing a lot of those off-speed pitches.
Well, you brought that up earlier in the game. That's kind of the name of the game in Korea.
Finesse, trying to trick the batters. Throw a lot of off-speed pitches, and he couldn't resist that one.
What's the old saying? Don't try and fool a breaking ball hitter with a breaking ball.
Right.
That's hit well up the right field line and down. And Kurt Suzuki is going to try for 3. A good throw might get him, but Infante's throw was spiked. It came into Moustakas on about 4 or 5 bounces.
So a double and now a triple going to the opposite field. That ball was on the outer half of the plate. Perfect swing by Suzuki. Ray Fuentes did a nice job of picking it off the wall in 2 bounces and had a good quick release into Infante, but they just couldn't get Suzuki. 2 outs. Sawyer can execute some pitches here. He can get out of the inning. Don't give him any more. A couple shots left for the Royals.
No balls, 2 strikes on Byron Buxton, who was 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts. Still 0-2. Slow breaking ball struck him out. But Young Ho Park hits his first major league home run into the water. And we go to the bottom of the 8th. The Royals down by 1. long home run by Byung-Ho Park against Joakim Soria. Tonight's copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Kansas City Royals. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Kansas City Royals Baseball Club. Ryan Lefevre with Rex Hudler, Joel Goldberg, Jeff Montgomery, with producer Joe Vencius, director Steve Kurtenbach, associate producers Al Broughton, Sam Abramson, Dave Holtzman, and the producer of Royals Live is Brian Shapiro. This is Kevin Jepsen on for the bottom of the 8th. As Minnesota has its first lead since the 2nd inning.
Jepsen can be very effective when he's spotting his fastball. He'll go mid-90s, maybe a little upper 90s with it. He's got an excellent slider. Occasional changeup he'll use on lefties. Look at Neil Allen saying, you know what? Grown men hit him there.
And I don't think Neil Allen knows Korean, but pointing to that part of the ballpark after what Park just did, I think there is a universal language being spoken.
There is, and baseball is a universal language.
Neil Allen, Kansas City, Kansas kid. That's into right center field. That's Santana out there now. Santana moving from left over to right. And Alex Gordon has his first hit, and the tying run is on with nobody out.
Stayed with a four-seam fastball, straight as a string. Just above the belt. Nice short, compact stroke. Yep, with a lead, they'll get the young right fielder Sano out of the game. Doesn't have quite the range the other guys have.
Very high to Salvador Perez. Salvi singled with 2 down and nobody on in the 2nd inning. That led to the Royals' 2-run inning. That's the only inning the Royals have scored tonight. They have left 9 on base and 7 in the last 3 innings. And that's hit well to left center. Rosario dives and it's by him. Rosario just came into the game for defense.
He's going for 3.
Salvi going for 3. Safe, and now the ball gets away, but he'll hold. Salvador Perez has tied the game with a triple. And now the go-ahead run is 90 feet away with nobody out.
Inside fastball, Jepsen liking his heater. Getting touched up by Alex Gordon, and now Salvi jumps on the backside of that and just drives it. And when Rosario left his feet, Salvi could see that and he couldn't contain himself. The crowd here at the K pushed him to third base. And a head-first slide on top of it.
Kind of a sideways head-first slide.
Yeah.
How about that?
Look at the emotion.
Blocked by Suzuki. It is the 8th career triple for Salvador Perez. Last year he had 0 triples. You got to go back to September of 2014 for the last Salvador Perez triple.
41 come from behind wins by the Royals last year. That was tied for the most in the American League. Look at the energy and the passion for Salvi. And the Royals, they're due for a comeback win.
Good swing and a fastball up. The Royals are right on Jepsen's fastball. Fonte doubled and scored in that 2-run 2nd inning. Infield in. Did he go? No appeal. 2 balls and 1 strike.
And Fonte likes to pull the ball, but right here in the situation with the infield's drawn in, you want to think right back up the middle. Just play a little pepper with him. See that big hole right up the middle there. It's a good spot. Stay short with your swing.
Two and two. Way high, 3 balls, 2 strikes.
Yep, good idea. You get him to swing in one of those, you might as well go back again. Now, right here, he's got to come in there.
Hit well into center field. This will put the Royals in front. Minnesota takes a lead in the top of the 8th, and the Royals only need 3 batters to regain the lead in the bottom of the 8th.
Just what they needed. Some fastballs right down the middle. Salvi showing some speed here early in the first week of the season. Legs out his first triple in 2 years. And that fastball, oh, they are just feasting off of it. Right down the middle. Infante short, compact, gets the job done. Sac fly, Royals lead.
I mean, and no drama, just bang, bang, bang. Single, triple, sac fly. Just like that, 2 runs.
It's like they said, you go, guys, we know how to do this. Let's come back and snatch it.
And now Fuentes, he drove in 2 in the 2nd inning, picking up his first hit as a Royal. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fuentes with 2 down, drove in Perez and Infante. That gave the Royals a 2-1 lead. Minnesota tied it in the 6th and took the lead briefly in the top half of this inning, only to watch the Royals get 2 in the bottom of the 8th. Two and 1.
Fuentes with a nice timely hit. 2nd and 3rd. First pitch by Irvin Santana. Santana didn't make many mistakes at all tonight. He was on his game. But that one down the middle, Ray Fuentes didn't miss it.
Two and 2. Remember to vote for the Royals Player of the Month at rallyhouse.com/Royals, and you'll be entered to win a majestic prize pack from Rally House. He went. It's a short throw for Suzuki. Fuentes reached in the Mets series with a strikeout wild pitch. Nearly did it again here. And now 2 down to Alcides Escobar. You know, it's only 1 game, and this game isn't over yet. It always feels that way with that guy warming up. But you pointed out the emotion shown by Salvador Perez after that triple. And the question has come up, not from people within the Royals circle, but on the outside. You know, what's the Royals' motivation this year? Back-to-back World Series. They've won 1. You know, what's going to drive them this year? Which is really kind of a silly question, but for someone who would wonder that, all you have to do is watch Salvador Perez's reaction in Game 3 of the season.
That's right.
Plouffe. And did Mauer keep his foot on the bag? I think the Royals might want to take a look at this. We will certainly look at this.
Yeah, check it out. The passion, the energy. Yeah, a little slug yourself in the chest.
Royals will not challenge, and the inning comes to an end. Salvador Perez ties it with a hit, takes the lead on a sac fly. Royals come back with 2 in the second. Minnesota takes the lead in the 8th with 1. The Royals come back with 2 in the bottom of the 8th as Yellowwood is bringing the lumber.
That's right. Bring that wood. Here it is early. Gordon not wasting any time. Short, quick swing, takes a single. Salvi says, I can drive this to the wall. Thank you, Rosario, for leaving your feet, because Salvi hits his first triple in a long time. He's passionate. He's ready to score. All he needs, some more Yellowwood. That's right. Hit some more wood in there, and Jepson throwing a little bit of gasoline on the fire here. Salvi looking like he's a track star with that running speed. And there it is, a 4-3 lead handed over to Wade Davis.
Davis gets the top of the Minnesota order, beginning with Brian Dozier, who's had a good night. He was 0 for 11 in the Baltimore series, and he's 2 for 3 with a walk tonight. Wade Davis, 69 games last year and his 0.94 earned run average.
Wow, unbelievable. .44 hitters only hit off him.
And quickly 0-2.
Loves that cut fastball. He got a nice overhand little curveball, and he'll mix in that changeup on occasion.
Cutter, perfect spot. Dozier thought he was going to be hit, and it almost got the inside part of the plate. Dozier, Santana, and Mauer. Same pitch, 2-2. Hosmer runs out of room. $27,166 on a chilly night. The first of 3 between the Royals and the Twins. Still 2-2.
We saw Dozier off of Kelvin Herrera turn a 95-mile-an-hour fastball around quickly on an inside fastball. He pulled it down the line, so he knows he can get to Wade Davis's fastball. We'll see if Davis puts maybe a secondary pitch on him here. There it was.
Boy, how did he make contact with that pitch?
There's Uncle Charlie. Another definition used for a curveball. Davis has a good one. I don't know how he got a piece of that either. So how he's going to catch it on the ground.
Wants to go back to that breaking ball again. And it's 3-2. The count was 0-2 at one point. Wade Davis in 2014 and 2015 against Minnesota. 17 and 1/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs.
Hard to repeat those numbers. But Davis very calm. He's going to go out and execute his pitch. Just to make him put it in play here.
Great plate appearance. After being down 0-2, Dozier is on with a leadoff walk. Royals baseball is brought to you by Ram Trucks. Guts, glory, Ram. And now Danny Santana. The Royals are preparing for a bunt. Moustakas is way in at third. And that's in the dirt. 1 ball and no strikes.
Talked about the bunting ability of Danny Santana. He's really good. He's got a good touch.
Dozier is the 8th walk allowed by a Royals pitcher tonight. And of Minnesota's 3 runs, 2 of the 3 reached with a walk.
Davis with a good quick move over to first base. Has good quick feet. And really the Royals are fortunate that they're catching the Twins at a good time offensively, because when you walk that many, usually that's a recipe for disaster. But the defense has been solid behind the pitching.
Now 2 balls and no strikes. Whether it's the Royals having success or it's Minnesota having success, this is a typical Royals Twins game. All those years that Minnesota was dominating the division, they at one point had 6 division titles in 9 years, and now it's the Royals who have had 3 straight winning seasons of at least 10 games above 500. It seems like no matter what, when these 2 teams got together, more times than not, this is the way it finished. Dozier looked like he was leaning. He's running. Perez throw is high. Dozier steals second base. Now the tying run is in scoring position with nobody out.
Dozier with a quick takeoff. I mean, he was a cat out of the box there at first base. Took a little peek back. Salvi had no chance even with a good throw.
It is also 3-1 on Santana. Bunts it foul. I don't know if doesn't look like he's trying to sacrifice. All 3 times that he has shown bunt, it's been a very late attempt at a bunt, and that one he was running out of the box.
Yeah, and not the right one to bunt too. This one you can't get on top of that. That would have been ball 4. So that's a bonus for Davis here. He's got to make him put it in play or strike him out.
Slap foul. Oh man. Chance of a lifetime for a fan over the third base dugout suite. There's his glove on the dugout.
Man, timed it perfectly too.
He made live to be 110, and he'll never get a chance like this again.
Right in the heel. The heel usually is the dead spot on the glove. Darn it.
Still 3-2. And then in the end, it was the glove's fault. He just slammed the glove on top of the dugout suite, and that poor glove is just sitting there. Santana strikes out on a breaking ball in the dirt.
Boy, that's a good selection there. After 2 fastballs in a row, actually 3, Davis pulls out the yellow hammer. Starts belt high, ends up in the ground. Got him. Good first out. See again, Salvi not trying to close his glove down, just keeping it in front. Nice job of blocking that ball, keeping it in front, not letting Dozier advance.
And now Joe Mauer. And if you're wondering about this matchup, 16 at bats, 6 hits, all singles, but that's about all the Twins would need right here. Up and away, 1 ball and no strikes.
Yep. Twins making Davis work. Next pitch, 20th coming. Outfield shallow. Lorenzo Cain playing in the left field side.
Right over the outside, 1-1. Dozier was down 0-2 and walked, and then he stole second base. One and two.
Well, that was a beauty. Again, starting out just above the belt, but on the inner half of the plate, it looked good to Mauer. He's going to pull this one. He's going to try to. Good spot. Down and away. Or down and in, but away from his bat.
Back to Davis, and they've got Dozier in a rundown. Now they got 2 players in the area of second base, and Dozier, boy, I tell you what, for a bad base running play, he turned it into a pretty good one to allow Mauer to get into scoring position, and Escobar may have twisted his knee or his ankle during that rundown.
Very interesting. Or maybe he got cleated during all that action right there.
Yeah, did he roll an ankle, or did he get a spike caught in those long pants?
I think it was a spike. It was caught with Dozier doing an excellent job. I mean, Dozier looked frantic, but here it is. Watch this. Oh, Escobar caught his own self. So heads up by Joe Mauer to go ahead and get back into scoring position over there at second base from first. Here it is. Davis with a nice play. I don't know if Fonte would have gotten to it, but that's 1, 2, 3. He falls down, and Escobar is able to alertly get back up and fire the ball to Infante, and then Escobar tripped over his own leg.
But that little dive right there by Dozier, that was huge, because if Escobar tags him out, they might have a chance to get Mauer at second base, but it extended the rundown. And now Eduardo Nunez is going to run for Mauer. And Eddie Rosario comes to the plate, not Miguel Sano. It was Rosario coming on defensively in the bottom of the 8th inning for Sano, and dove for a ball off the bat of Salvador Perez that may have turned that into a triple. Oh, that crossed up Salvador Perez. He was not expecting a fastball.
Ooh, man, you know, I don't think Salvi got any glove on that whatsoever. Oh, he caught that Wade Davis fastball with his wrist. Not good. And you use the term cross up, that means that Salvador put down curveball and Davis thought it was a fastball and crossed him up. An excellent job by Salvi to at least to stay in the front of it. Ouch. It's right on the wrist. Boy, you hope that's okay.
You know, and as I'm watching with that hit, I'm grabbing my own left wrist, and I'm reminded that there is, you know, depending on where I hit the wrist, there is some meat there. I mean, that's not, you know, if it was
all
on
bone.
the other side of the arm, it goes right to the bone.
Yeah.
It is 1-0 on Eddie Rosario. And it looks like Salvi's taking responsibility for that cross-up. Dozier was at second base before that ground ball by Mauer, so it's not the first time there's been a runner at second base in this inning. So they were on the same page up until that pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike. It will happen at times when a reliever comes out of the bullpen and then a runner gets to the second base for the first time in the inning that there'll be a cross up, but this is not the first time. One and two.
It's almost like Wade Davis said, all right, guys, look, enough of this toying around. Minnesota Twins making it tough on Davis. Now all of a sudden he's executed. Sharp, sharp curveball.
Got him. And the Royals take game 1 from Minnesota. And they do it in come from behind fashion, like they did 41 times in their championship year last season.
Waiter, check please.
Our second KCW of the season. The Royals improved to 2-1. Minnesota drops to 0-4. And talking about drop, how about the way that curveball dropped on Rosario?
All of a sudden, Wade Davis said, all right, enough messing around here. Almost got my catcher hurt. Want to save this up game. turning the Royals fans happy.
Looks as good tonight as it did all of last year. That W hanging above the Royals Hall of Fame. So the Royals, after seeing Minnesota take the lead in the top of the 8th, come back and regain the lead in the bottom of the 8th, and Wade Davis picks up his 2nd save of the year. Let's go down to the field, and here's Joel.
And a chance right now to visit with Raymond Fuentes, who has his first hit as a Kansas City Royal, first RBI. How good was it to be able to get on the board?
It felt great. You know, we've been looking for this since the first game, so it's pretty exciting. And since we got it, then we're really going.
He says, Frio. Yeah, sorry about that. I was just apologizing that it's cold out, and I think I kind of knew what was coming, but welcome to your first hit as a Kansas City Royal. But back to that story there, too. How good to be able to contribute, get the team on the board.
This is what it's all about, you know, just trying to help the team win, and it feels great to help them win, and we got it today, and we keep on going to the season.
You watched what these guys were able to do last year. You were with them all spring training this season, too. So what were your impressions of that comeback late, immediately striking back?
You know what? It's something the Royals do a lot, so it's not surprising. But you know, we got to do what we got to do. So this is it. So we get the win.
Salvi had some pretty quick moves there with the Gatorade bucket. I know you didn't see it, but he also had his first triple since 2014. So when you see the big guy, the catcher, knocking it around with a triple, what are you guys thinking on the bench?
Hey, he got to go. I mean, he gets that run in and put himself in scoring position so we can get that other run. So, but we've been laughing in the dugout since he got it, and just seeing him run around, it was kind of funny. So.
Congratulations on the first Royals hit, the first Royals RBI, and more importantly now, go warm up.
All righty, thank you, yeah.
All right, that is Raymond Fuentes, took the ice bath. Actually, he still has ice falling out of the back of his shirt and pants right now, so he'll go warm up, all worthwhile when you're contributing in the big leagues, guys.
And I guess Salvi's wrist is okay, Hud.
I guess so. I mean, that Gatorade bucket, or that water bucket, looked like it was pretty full. Look at that ice ball.
I don't think there was any water in there. I think that was all ice.
Look at Salvi's face.
That sums it up tonight. Royals win at 4-3. We'll be right back.